You're listening to Insights with Philip Wilson, where the discussion focuses on how to maximize Social Security benefits. Considering there are 567 ways to file and 3,000 rules for filing, it's no wonder that 90% of those who file for Social Security do not receive their maximum benefits. Listen in as Philip Wilson, who is certified in Social Security claiming strategies, outlines what you need to know to get the most from your Social Security benefits.
Welcome to the show. Today I want to continue our discussion of the most important financial decision that you will make in your lifetime. The decision that over 90% of the population does not make correctly. We've been talking about how to maximize your Social Security benefit. I believe the decision of when and how you file for Social Security is the most important financial decision you will make. The reason for that is because we all need, going into retirement, income streams for life, streams of income that you cannot outlive, streams of income that continue as long as you continue. This is so important today because we are the first generation going into retirement that's likely to spend more years in retirement than we did working. It's going to be very likely that a lot of people going into retirement outlive their assets. This is happening together at a time when the government is cutting back, medical costs are rising, medical advances are keeping people alive longer. It's a serious issue. So having these income streams for life is so important because we just don't know how long we're going to live. And going into retirement, there's just so many different problems that we're going to face from having a long life. At some point, we're all going to become frail. We're all going to need someone to take care of us. Having an income stream for life is the best way that you can prepare yourself for these challenges. Income streams are the best protection against living too long. That's why I emphasize them with everybody that I meet to talk about retirement planning. I emphasize them because I don't think there's anything else that's more important than that. Social Security is the largest source of income that most of us have. And the decision of when and how you file for Social Security is the most important financial decision that you will make in your lifetime. It's absolutely vital that we maximize that source of income going into retirement. It's also true that over 90% of people filing for Social Security do not receive their maximum benefit. And that happens because there's 3,000 Social Security rules to follow. Most people don't have a clue associated with all these different rules. They don't have a clue that there's more than 500 different ways to file for Social Security. They're not aware of where they can receive advice. They're not aware of the problem. Most of the people that I come in contact with have either sought advice from someone who's knowledgeable in this, but there's really not very many people that really understand the rules, even in my industry. So today what I want to do is just kind of set up all this discussion. I want to go back and kind of summarize some of these general strategies that we've been talking about over the last few weeks. I'm not going to have as much time to go into the individual ones, but I would like to kind of go over them for anybody that who was not able to be a part of the broadcast at that time. You may find that some of these you need to look into further. You also find our shows on our website as well that you can go to and listen to the actual podcast of that, get more information. So I'm just going to be able to quickly summarize the different situations and kind of go over them. If you need more information on that, you're going to need to either do your research on your own, go to the website, some combination along those lines. Now, so my goal overall over the last few weeks is to help you maximize your income. All of these different situations are involved with something in life, something that's happened to you in life. You're single, you're married, your spouse dies, you get divorced. This is where the filing strategies take place. The different strategies generally relate to someone's situation in their life. The first week I talked about married couples, filing strategies for married couples. And the area we talked about is something called spousal benefit. And I find that spousal benefits are the most misunderstood type of Social Security benefit. I see more mistakes in this area than any other area. And the biggest reason for that, in my opinion, is because spousal benefits are not mentioned on your Social Security statements. So when you receive these statements from the Social Security, they don't say anything about this. This is a benefit that's actually based on the earnings record of your spouse. It's not based on your record. So those earnings statements that you receive talk about your income, your work history, and what your benefit is going to be. It doesn't talk about what your benefit could be if you filed on the records of your spouse. So a spousal benefit is a situation that's available to married couples who are age 62 or older, who've been married for 1 year or more. If you've been married for 1 year or more, you have the opportunity to file for 50% of your spouse's full retirement age benefit. So if your spouse would receive $3,000 at full retirement age, you actually could file for 50% of that, or $1,500. Now, why would you do that? The reason why you would do that is because that 50% ends up being greater than your own benefit. And this typically goes back to someone who's a homemaker, who's taking care of children, who sacrificed their work career, and they will find, because of lack of income or work history, that they're going to be better off filing on 50% of your spouse. Very common situation with most married couples who typically have most of the earnings in one spouse. The other person has a much lower earnings history and a benefit. So in this situation, we actually ignore the benefit. We actually ignore what the Social Security Administration says is available to you. We actually never file on your own record. So even though you've been paying taxes, you actually don't even file on that. You file on the record of your spouse. And you can do that if you've been married for 1 year or more, you're age 62. And so all that's really required here is that you need to do the math. Is 50% of your spouse's full retirement age benefit greater than your own? If so, that spousal benefit is going to be the way to file. How do you figure this out? Well, you can receive an earnings statement from the Social Security Administration on yourself and on your spouse. If you look at full retirement age, which will be their normal retirement age, it might be 66, might be 66 and a half, it might be 67, but whatever it is at that time, if you take half of that and compare it to what your benefit will be at full retirement age, if it's greater, then you're better off filing for a spousal benefit. If it's not, you're better off filing for your benefit. But it really is as simple as that for married couples. Now, the biggest catch associated with a spousal benefit is that one spouse needs to be collecting a benefit for the other to be eligible. So one spouse has to be collecting a benefit. It doesn't necessarily have to be a retirement benefit, but they have to be collecting a benefit. A disability benefit, for example, will activate this rule. So one spouse might be receiving a disability benefit, the other spouse would be able to collect one half of that as a spousal benefit. So 3 requirements: age 62, 1 year of marriage, spouse collecting a benefit. Is the benefit of 50% of your spouse's benefit greater than your own? If so, you need to check out a spousal benefit for a married couple. The second situation that we use spousal benefits is a situation, the first situation was when we have a high income together with a low income spouse, married couple. The second situation is where it isn't necessarily a high and a low, but it's 2 spouses that have pretty good benefits. A lot of times you might have one person working, the other person receiving a benefit, go ahead and retire, something along those lines, but there's actually an exception. We've been talking about a deemed filing exception, and deemed filing was the rule going forward where you could not pick and choose your Social Security benefits. But there is a situation that you can do that, where you could receive a spousal benefit temporarily and then come back and receive your own benefit at a later date. And that is for people who were born before 1954. If you've turned 62 by 12/31/15 and you qualify for a spousal benefit, which means 1 year or more of marriage, you can file a restricted application for a spousal benefit while coming back and filing for your own benefit at a later date. A restricted application is a certain way that we file with the Social Security Administration that restricts your benefits. In general, under the new rules, if you are filing for Social Security, you are deemed to be filing for all available Social Security, whether you want it or not, whether you receive it or not. A restricted application does exactly what it says. It restricts your application, restricts your benefit. So in this situation, what we do is go to the Social Security Administration. We actually file for a spousal benefit while restricting our own benefit, even though you may be eligible for that. And by doing that, you're able to collect a spousal benefit for a number of years while delaying your own benefit. And by delaying your own benefit, it's going to go up 8% per year with the delayed retirement credits until you reach age 70. So you could receive a spousal benefit for several years and then go back at age 70 and then switch to that benefit. Now, the situations that I see where a lot of people use this situation might be where one spouse, even a lower income spouse, is receiving a smaller disability benefit, maybe even early, while one spouse is working. So just to give you an example, I see people all the time that are receiving disability benefits, or maybe they filed for their benefit at age 66, but then the other spouse is planning on working till age 70 and then filing for their benefit. Well, because one spouse is receiving a benefit, they're eligible for a spousal benefit. So even though one person is working and plans on coming back at age 70, they actually immediately could receive one half of the person's benefit, one half of the Social Security benefit that the other spouse is receiving right then. I see this an awful lot of times where someone will go ahead and file. They might be receiving a $500 a month benefit. The other spouse is working. They plan on working till age 70, and that's really what you're going to live off of in retirement. Well, that spouse that's working could actually file for one half of that benefit while still working and while still preserving what their benefit's going to be at age 70 without affecting it at all. That's a restricted application benefit, and it's available only if you've been born before 1954. So you file, you don't take your own benefit, you file for your spousal benefit, which is based on the earnings records of your spouse, and then you delay your own retirement benefit and file for it at a later date, and you switch to that. So you do have the ability to file for one half of your spouse's benefit if you qualify for this exception without affecting your age 70 benefit. I meet so many people in my seminars that one person is receiving a benefit either through disability or just a regular benefit, and they don't realize that they could receive another half of that as a spousal benefit without jeopardizing their plan for coming back at age 70. Very, very important. Just leaving a lot of money on the table. So let's take a break, and then we'll come back and review the other two strategies, divorce benefits and widow benefits, in the rest of the show. Welcome back. Let's continue our discussion of the different filing strategies with the goal in mind to maximize your Social Security income for retirement. We've been talking about filing strategies for married couples, primarily spousal benefits. There's a couple different ways that's a benefit for married couples. In the rest of the show, I want to cover the other two strategies that we looked over in previous weeks. One is for divorce benefits, one are for widow benefits. These are the other two areas that a lot of people make a lot of mistakes. The spousal benefit, just like this divorce benefit, is so much of a mistake because it's not something that's mentioned on your Social Security earnings statement. When you receive the Social Security earnings statement from the government, it'll say what your benefit is. It might even say what the widow benefit is, but it doesn't say anything about divorce benefits or spousal benefits. Those are two benefits that are based on the earnings of someone else. The reason why so many people make mistakes in this area is because they just don't even know about them. They don't realize that you could actually file on the earnings record of your spouse through a spousal benefit. Or they don't realize that you could file on the earnings record of your ex through a divorce benefit. So let's review for divorce benefits for those that this might be eligible, this might be a benefit for them. In general, the requirements for a divorce benefit are that you're single, age 62 or older, and you were married for 10 years or more. If you were married for 10 years or more, you can file for a divorce benefit or you can file for your own benefit. You just have to determine which is going to be the advantage. Divorce benefits are equal to 50% of whatever your ex will make at full retirement age benefits. So whatever they're going to make, if they were going to make $3,000, that you could file for a divorce benefit for half of that, or $1,500. Divorce benefits are primarily there to protect women. Those that have been out of the workforce, staying home with children, those that have sacrificed their income for the sake of the family. When they get to retirement, filing on their own record is not their only option. This other option for the divorce benefit is where the people make mistakes because they don't realize they could receive more money by filing on the records of someone else. So if someone doesn't have a lot of work history, that's primarily who is going to be benefited from the divorce benefit. So single, age 62, and I said single. So if you're remarried, you don't have a divorce benefit anymore. Single, age 62, married for 10 years or more. In general, there is no relationship with it receiving a divorce benefit if it has been 2 years after the filing date of the divorce. If it's been less than 2 years of the filing date of the divorce, there are some complications a little bit beyond the scope of this radio show, but most people that I deal with from a divorce standpoint, it's been way more than 2 years. If it's been more than 2 years, it's an independent situation, so it does not really matter what the ex is doing. I receive that question all the time. Well, what if he's not retired? What if he's not this? What if he's not that? What if I don't know what he's making? There is no. When you file for a divorce benefit and it's 2 years after the filing date of the divorce, it doesn't matter what the ex is doing. The ex is not aware that you're filing for a divorce benefit. There's no effect whatsoever on their benefit because you filed for a divorce benefit. This is a legal benefit that's available to you if you were 62, single, and 10 years or more. It doesn't have anything to do with the ex. Very, very important, because I know a lot of times there's people, I receive questions where people are a little bit worried about creating a tense, the divorce is already a tense situation, and they're worried about creating more problems. So in general, that really shouldn't even be a concern. Now, the other area that I run into quite a bit with a divorce benefit is that people just don't really know if it's a benefit or not because they don't know the math. They might know that it's based on the earnings record of their ex, but they don't know what the earnings record of their ex is. You know, quite often when people get divorced, they hide income. There's all kinds of things going on. Most exes really are not aware of what's going on with their ex spouse and their income and work history and so forth. If it is a good situation with the ex, you can find out that information if they would just give you an earnings report. If they will pull an earnings report off of the Social Security's website, ssa.gov, and give it to you, you can determine whether or not the divorce benefit is going to be an advantage for you to file. But most of the time I see that is not going to be the case. So most of the time what people have to do is they have to go down to the Social Security office and verify it directly. That's not necessarily so easy. It's viewed as a bit of a privacy issue. It's on the Social Security number of someone else. So even though you're eligible for it, verifying it isn't quite so easy. This is something that you have to do in person. You have to go down to the Social Security office with your divorce decree and your marriage certificate, and you have to ask them to verify what that benefit's going to be. I run into this all the time when I have clients come in and want to talk about retirement planning and looking ahead, and they've been divorced, and but we don't really know what the filing strategy is going to be for Social Security. We don't really know how much income is going to be there because we don't know what the divorce benefit is. So this generally is a first step for most people to do that kind of planning. They need to go down there, they need to verify it, so then we can compare it to their own work record to see whether or not it's even an advantage. It may be greater, it may not be greater. So the two biggest issues are generally, will he know? And the answer is no. And the other issue is whether or not it's a benefit to him at all, a benefit to you at all. which you're not going to know unless you go down there in person and verify it. It cannot be done over the phone, cannot be done over the internet. Now, the other area that I see a lot of mistakes in with the divorce benefit is when people, even though they're still working, they don't realize that they could receive a divorce benefit while still coming back and preserving their own benefit at age 70. So let me talk about this. We're back to exceptions again for these deemed filing rules. These filing rules that basically say that when you file for Social Security, you are deemed to be receiving all of the sources of Social Security, whether you want to or not, or whether you are receiving them or not. The ability to pick and choose a Social Security benefit is pretty much history, but they left exceptions. The first exception I covered before the break, that was for spousal benefits. So if you had a married couple that was eligible for a spousal benefit that had been born before 1954, they have the ability to restrict their Social Security benefit to a spousal benefit only and then come back at age 70 and file for their own benefit. You could do the same thing with a divorce benefit. I meet women all the time that went back to work and are trying to prepare for the retirement and the kids getting out of school and so forth, and they don't realize that they're eligible for a divorce benefit right then, even though they are working. They could be receiving that money while still working and while still coming back at age 70 and filing for their own benefit at that time. So it's the same technique of a restricted application. You restrict the benefit to a divorce benefit only. You could do that at your full retirement age if you were born before 1954 and still come back and preserve your own benefit at age 70. Very, very important. I meet women all the time that have left money on the table and just don't realize if they think that if they file for the divorce benefit, they don't realize with this exception that it's not going to jeopardize what their benefit's going to be at age 70. Now, the final area that I want to cover is that of a widow benefit. And then I will close out this summary show of the different filing strategies. Widow benefits are a lot more known. Most people are aware of them because they are on your earnings statement, unlike divorce benefits or spousal benefits. You will see them on your earnings statement. Most people are aware of them. They may not necessarily be aware of some of the nuances associated with it, such as what makes you eligible, 9 months or more of marriage. So if you've been married for 9 months or more, you are eligible for a widow benefit. There are some exceptions to that. There's a military exception, for example. So if someone has been married for less than 9 months, they might still qualify for a widow benefit. But the biggest nuance associated with widow benefits is when you're remarried. People are not, I mentioned before with divorce benefits, if you are single, you're eligible for a divorce benefit. If you were remarried, you're going to lose it. But under a widow benefit, you do have the ability to remarry. If you remarry after age 60, you do have the ability to collect a widow benefit or collect benefits based on the new spouse. If you get remarried before age 60, you lose the widow benefit. And for those that get remarried before age 60, they're going to fall under the spousal benefit rules and the normal married rules associated with Social Security filing. And this is very, very important that people realize that they could have the opportunity to remarry, but also if they do remarry after age 60, their filing strategy needs to be looked at because they could either file on their own benefit, a widow benefit, or a benefit with their spouse. And it's all going to come down on earnings history of all three. Was the earnings history of the deceased better than your current husband or wife? Is the earnings history of the current spouse better than the deceased? That's generally going to give you direction on whether or not the widow benefit, spousal benefit, or your own benefit is the way to go. Now, the last thing I want to mention is the exceptions to the survivor benefits, this deemed filing exception. And this is the third exception. The first one was spousal benefits, the second divorce benefits, the third is with widow benefits. And there are no deemed filing rules associated with survivor benefits, which means that you actually could file for spousal benefits and not lose the ability to come back and get your own benefit at age 70. That can be done at any age. It doesn't matter whether you were born before 1954 or not. Very, very important. They left that exception in for survivor benefits Of course, those that were born before 1954 might be eligible for the other exceptions, but those who were born after 1954, that's it. The deemed filing rules are going to take over. But with widow benefits, those will continue for everyone. So there is no requirement that they were born before a certain year. Very, very important, because a lot of times we will need to file for a widow benefit by still coming back and filing for your own benefit. And then lastly, I just want to cover the divorced widow benefit. In the previous show, I talked about widow benefits, that they were 100% of the full retirement age benefit of the deceased. That also applies to divorce benefits as well. So it's no longer 50%, it's 100%. So someone could be receiving a divorce benefit for several years, then turn around and file for a widow benefit because they passed away and their Social Security benefit doubles. Very, very important. A widow benefit is the highest benefit of any of the Social Security benefits. So let me just close out this week by setting up what we want to talk about next week, and that is a strategy of what is the best time to file for Social Security. It's probably the most important class that I'm going to talk about, trying to address a very, very important question. At what age should you file for Social Security? What's the best age? What's the optimal age? And I'll look forward to talking to you next week.
You've been listening to Insights with Philip Wilson, an Alabama registered investment advisor. Learn more by visiting his website at ssmistakes.com or by calling 205-868-9297.